ضيوفنا الأعزاء وبنتنا الجميلة أمنية. السلام عليكم جميعا. الليلة حتكون أمسية متميزة من أمسيات المدينة. حتكون أمسية متميزة من أمسيات نادينا، بنستضيف فيها بنتنا أمنية نصرالدين سليمان محي الدين. نصرالدين is a classmate، و يعني أذكر إنه نحن وأثناء شغلنا في إيرلندا كنا عايشين مع نصرالدين في مدينة واحدة، وكنا neighbor to each other، لكن ما أفتكر إنه بنتنا أمنية بتتذكر الوقت ده. لكن سعداء جدا يا أمنية، نحن الليلة سعداء جدا في إنه to be with us here today. وأنا I rang by the way أمنية early on just to get together in this business. فقلت لها إنه you will be the youngest person to present here in this platform. إحنا النادي بتاعنا is running now for the 4th year. We have maybe more than 100 people who presented here, including your dad. People of different specialties, different age group. They presented different subjects, but no one is as young as yourself. So you should feel very proud of yourself. We are all very proud of you. Mom and Dad and Khaltu, they should be also very proud of you. The other thing is that we enjoy this place when we meet. We enjoy it a lot, and we so often learn from each other. Today is your day, and we are going to learn from you. Good luck, وإن شاء الله هنسمع منك, we will learn from you. Things will be very easy. Just relax and enjoy it. يا أمنية. We hope everybody will enjoy it. Umnia, today she's going to present a book. The name of the book is The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. It was written by one of the very famous Irish writer, who's John Boyne. Boyne is a typical Irish name. Irish, they have Boyne, Boyle, and Boyle. These are typical Irish names. He's a very famous middle-aged writer. He has many books. He used to write for adults. This is how his books are categorized in the Irish literature. He writes for adults and for young readers. He has more than 12 books for adults, and maybe the same number of books for young readers. And on the other hand, his work is being categorized as novels and short stories, and some books are novellas. أول مرة أنا أعرف النوفيلاز دي اللي هي is described as shorter than the novel and longer than a short story. He's very famous. He's sometimes controversial in Irish society, but we are not too much concerned with that. He's sometimes controversial, lakin he won many prizes nationally and internationally. His books are translated to more than, this is how it was described, translated to more than 50 languages. And this particular book was sold 7 million copies around the world. So it's a very famous book by a very famous writer. And I will congratulate you, Bictana Omnia, because it's a successful selection. It's a very good selection. And I will come to that later, and I don't want to give too much introduction, but both دي by the way is Irish. Irish but بيقولوا both. And so I'll give you the chance, Omnia. And first, I would like you to introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself. How old are you? What are you doing? And what level are you in the education process? And go ahead, أمنية.
شكرا دكتور سليمان، وأشكر أسرة نادي الكتاب للدعوة ولهذه الجلسة. أنا اسمي أمنية نصرالدين سليمان، محيدين نصرالدين سليمان، وأنا 17 سنة، وأنا هسه خلصت السنة الخامسة في الثانوي، والسنة الجاية السنة السادسة وإن شاء الله طب بعد ذاك. So أنا حتكلم الليلة عن you already said the boy in the striped pajamas. Musliman already talked about John Boyne, بس أنا أتكلم عنه شوية تاني. John Boyne, he's an Irish writer who was born in Dublin in 1971. After he graduated from Trinity College in Dublin with an undergraduate degree in English literature, Boyne attended a graduate program in creative writing at the University of East Anglia, located in Norwich, England. Since completing his master's degree, he has published many novels for adult readers, as well as novels for young readers and one collection of short stories. His writing has been, as Dr. Suleiman said, translated into over 50 languages and has earned Boyne a number of awards, including the Irish Book Awards, as well as the Hennessy Literary Hall of Fame Award for his still growing body of work. In addition to his prolific career as a fiction writer, Boyne works as a regular book reviewer for the Irish Times, and has served as a judge on committees for a wide variety of literary prizes. Although Boyne's literary career began in 2000 with the publication of his first novel, The Thief of Time, he didn't achieve world renown until 2006, when he catapulted into international fame with the publication of his debut novel for young adults, The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. So I'm going to talk about a bit more the background of the book. The Boy in the Striped Pajamas offers a unique perspective on the horrors of the Holocaust. Boyne's novel takes place at the infamous concentration camp in Auschwitz, and it tells a fictional story of a friendship between a German boy named Bruno and a Jewish boy from Poland named Shmuel. Bruno has moved with his family to Auschwitz so his father could take over as the commanding officer, or commandant. Bruno meets Shmuel while exploring the fence that separates the world of his family from the desolate world of the people in the camp. The boys sit on either side of the fence and share the stories of their lives. Boyne began writing the novel one day after an image came to him of two boys at once, separated and united by a fence. He decided to write the novel from the naive point of view of a 9-year-old German boy, who would only learn about the reality of his situation in pieces. The Boy in the Striped Pajama became an international bestseller immediately upon its publication in 2006. 2 years after its publication, Boyne's novel received a major film adaptation, and since then, the novel has been adapted into a stage play, a ballet, and an opera. And then soon after its release, the novel began to make its way onto school reading lists, becoming a tool for Holocaust education. I personally read it in primary school and then again in junior cert in secondary school. And then Boyne visited over 200 schools to speak with young students about his book and to discuss Holocaust history. In this regard, the book has proven a great success. Boyne has publicly stated that one of his goals in writing the novel as a fable from a child's point of view was to give younger readers a gentler introduction to the gruesome realities of the Holocaust. Although The Boy in the Striped Pajamas has also met with strong criticism. Literary critics, historians, Holocaust survivors, and prominent figures in the global Jewish community have all questioned the novel's fable-like quality. Many critics fear Bruno's naive worldview makes it difficult for young adult readers with limited knowledge of the Holocaust to understand the true nature of what's going on. For instance, the novel never explicitly uses the name of the camp Auschwitz, and instead only uses Bruno's childlike misinterpretation of the word out with. Without proper context, young readers might not make the necessary connection. Critics have also questioned the novel's historical accuracy. In his review of the book, Rabbi Benjamin Blesh notes that Shmuel's ability to move about freely is both unlikely and implicitly denies the constant presence of death that the novel the constant presence of death that permeated the camps. Researcher Michael Gray conducted a study to evaluate the novel's effectiveness as an educational tool. Based on the data he collected, Gray concluded that the novel may encourage problematic misconceptions about the Holocaust. Despite these and the other reservations, the book remains widely taught. So that was a little bit about the author and about the book itself. I'm going to start talking about the story. So it's set in 1942 Berlin in Germany. Germany is deeply involved with World War II and Nazi philosophies. So far, Germany has been largely successful in its goals for the war and Europe. The Boy in the Striped Pajamas plot takes the main character Bruno and his family to Auschwitz. So the main story, how does it go and what really happens? So the plot. Bruno comes home from school to find the maid, Maria, packing his things because the family is moving away from Berlin. Bruno, of course, is not very happy about this because he has his 3 best friends in the whole wide world and he doesn't want to leave them behind. He whines to his mom, dad, and Gretel and the maid, but he's not very lucky. His father just got a promotion and they're going to be moving. Adding to Bruno's troubles, the family's new house is super isolated, and there's a huge wire fence near the property, which Bruno never fails to compare to his majestic home from which he came. While Bruno unpacks his things, he spots a blonde soldier and feels quite uneasy. He doesn't like him. He notices a window and looks through it and sees something that makes him feel cold and unsafe. Bruno tells Gretel, his sister, that the other children look unfriendly. Turns out that Bruno's window has a lovely view of the Auschwitz camp. Bruno thinks it's weird that there are tons of kids and adults on the other side of the fence, and even weirder that they're all wearing the same striped pajamas and striped cap. After a few weeks, Bruno decides he has to find some sort of entertainment or he will go absolutely crazy. So he decides to make a tire swing. Lieutenant Cutler, who's helping his father out while they came here new, helps him out and orders Pavel, a Jew, to get a tire from the storage shed. Pavel sets Bruno up and soon the kid's happily swinging, but then he suddenly falls. Luckily, Pavel comes to Bruno's rescue, and while he cleans him up, he tells Bruno that he's a doctor, but that doesn't make any sense to Bruno because he's in the kitchen peeling potatoes and helping out the house. How could he possibly be a doctor? Soon after, Bruno's mother comes home and discovers what happened. She tells Pavel that if the commandant asks, or Bruno's father, she cleaned Bruno's wounds. Bruno has a flashback to the last Christmas with his family and his grandparents. Grandma told Bruno's father that she's ashamed of what he's become and can't believe what he and the other Nazis are doing. Then she stormed out. It's the last Bruno's seen of her. Then we come back into the present, and months pass and Bruno decides to go exploring, which basically involves walking along the length of the wire fence that separates his family from the concentration camp. During his exploration session, Bruno comes upon a boy sitting on the ground in pajamas and an armband featuring the Star of David. Bruno's kind of shocked about how small and sad-looking the boy is. He's skinny, and compared to him, Bruno is quite fat. And Bruno could really use some company. So he ends up talking to him, and he finds out that the boy's name is Shmuel, and Bruno and him share a birthday. Shmuel is from Poland, and he informs the oblivious Bruno that they're in Poland and not in Germany, like Bruno's been thinking. They plan to meet again tomorrow. Time for another flashback. So this is when Hitler, or what Bruno called him, the Fury, came to dinner. He brought his girlfriend Ava, who was a beautiful blonde woman, in contrast to him, short, ugly, with a mustache that Bruno did not take a liking to. And Bruno and Gretel were not allowed to have dinner with the adults. Afterward, Bruno heard his parents arguing about the move, which the mother was totally against. Turns out that Hitler came to tell the commandant that he was about to get a promotion and they had to move to Auschwitz and leave their lovely home in Berlin behind. So back in the present, they are now in Auschwitz, of course. It's the next day, so Bruno returns to the fence. Shmuel explains what happened to him and his family before coming to the camp. Soon after, Bruno walks into the kitchen and is shocked to find Shmuel cleaning their crystal glasses. Turns out his pal's been brought to the house by Lieutenant Cutler, to clean glasses for his father's birthday, and offers Shmuel chicken. He eats it, of course, but Cutler catches him and he gets mad. Shmuel says Bruno gave it to him, and that they're friends, but out of fear of Lieutenant Cutler, Bruno says he's never seen him before in his life and completely denies their friendship. This, of course, is not a very good thing for Shmuel, because Shmuel ends up getting in really big trouble. But they're okay. Bruno meets him after a few days and they apologize and they're friends again. So then after more than a year of Bruno and Shmuel talking nonstop every afternoon, except for rainy days, of course, because Bruno would not leave his house during rainy days, Bruno's mother wants to move back to Berlin with the kids. Now, Bruno's not as happy as he thought he'd be about this idea, though, and dreads breaking the news to Shmuel. However, as it turns out, Shmuel has bigger fish to fry. His dad's gone missing. So the boys hatch a plan for Bruno to dress up in the pajamas and help Shmuel find his dad before he leaves Auschwitz the next day, on Saturday. So on Friday, Bruno goes to the fence. He changes into the striped pajamas, leaves his things on the side, and crawls under the fence. The two boys walk toward the camp, and Bruno realizes that the things are very bad on Shmuel's side. Bruno had this notion that on the other side of the fence, Shmuel would have cafes and people talking and laughing, how it used to be for him in Berlin. But of course, it was the complete opposite when he went across the fence. Now Bruno wants to go home, but he's promised Shmuel that he'll help, and as a loyal friend, he stays. Unfortunately, though, they don't find Shmuel's father. Just as Bruno is about to head home, the boys are surrounded by soldiers and are forced to march. They're led to a gas chamber, but neither boy realizes this at the moment. And once inside, they hold hands and they tell one another how much they mean to each other. The lights go off, chaos ensues, and we unfortunately know that the end of this story is not going to be happy. So in the last chapter, we see how the family deals with Bruno's disappearance. His mother and Gretel end up going back to Berlin. The mother is upset. She prolonged her moving back to Berlin for a good few months, hoping that Bruno would come back one day and just show up at their house again. But of course, there's no use. And then one day she gets the idea that, oh, maybe he's back in Berlin. She goes back half expecting him to be on her doorstep, but of course, he's not there. Gretel is no longer that annoying sister who hates Bruno and they argue all the time. No, she spends all of her days crying in her room, missing Bruno. But his father stays in Auschwitz for the next year. The soldiers start to dislike him, and he becomes very merciless and he's very rough, ordering to do whatever they want, and if they didn't do it, then they would get in trouble. Then one day he has an epiphany. He retraces Bruno's steps back to where the clothes were found beside the pile of clothes were found beside the fence, and he's looking around the fence and he's trying to find for any clue as to where Bruno what could have possibly happened to Bruno, because when he died, they searched for him for days, for months, but they had no idea what could have happened to him. They searched the local towns, the local villages, no idea what happened to him. So one day, of course, his father goes back and he's retracing Bruno's steps and goes on a little adventure or exploration himself and realizes what happens to his son. Part of the fence was not in the floor, was not in the ground as the rest of the fence. So it was able to be lifted up, and of course, it was a gap big enough for a small person, such as a little boy, to crawl underneath. He looked into the distance and he followed it logically, and step by step, he found out what happened to him. Soon enough, he seemed faint and he fell to his legs and he didn't know what to do. He almost gave up. So then a few months later, other soldiers came to Auschwitz, which are the Allies, and they came and they ordered the father to come with them, and he surrendered. He didn't care what they had to do with him anymore. He gave up. The loss of Bruno took a huge toll on that whole entire family. And I think the writer here was trying to show us the effect of losing a child and how much of an effect it can have on a family. And maybe even he was trying to show that the father is a taste of his own medicine. What he was doing to families in the camp all day, every day, separating mothers and fathers from their children, separating them into male and female. Maybe he was trying to show maybe he was trying to tell us the big effect and what they did to people on a daily basis. So that's what happened in the book. In conclusion, Bruno ended up passing away due to his father's inhumane actions. So I'm going to go more into detail about Bruno, about him as a character, and how through him we get to see, and through him we learn the history of Nazi Germany and the true effect that it had on all these Jewish people and history in general. So Bruno, of course, we know that he's a 9-year-old German boy, and he's the novel's protagonist. He misses the life and the friends he left behind in Berlin, and when his family unexpectedly moved to Poland for his father's career, he's unhappy. Although Bruno intuitively feels that his family's new home at Outwith Camp is the loneliest place in the world, he does not understand what the place really is or what goes on there. Bruno has quite a naive outlook on life. So, like the usual, when he left Berlin, he couldn't stop complaining about his 3 best friends in the whole wide world and how he could never leave them. And I'm sure we've all had friends like that before. And he complains constantly about his sister Gretel, and which is, in his eyes, an hopeless case. He says this multiple times throughout the book. His sister and his friends used to often tease Bruno about his age and his size, and that irked him the most. His mother, who he respects deeply, and as mentioned in the book on multiple occasions, he may never ever interrupt her. That was their #1 rule. And he claims that he is her favorite. Father is a scary, important man, and not too sure why though. He's the man of the house. His job is unknown for a while though in the book. This is a mystery for Bruno, as he knows all of his friends' dads' jobs. But what is it about his dad that's so different? So in this book, we learn that, like most 9-year-olds, they don't really comprehend things as they are. He doesn't comprehend why a massive fence stands so near to the family's house, or why so many soldiers have been stationed there. Nor does he understand who the people on the other side of the fence are, or why they're all wearing the same striped pajamas, or why there are people behind the fence wearing an armband with a star on it, and why his dad wears one with a weird symbol he doesn't understand, which is the Nazi sign. Though Bruno eventually learns that the fence exists to separate a group of people known as Jews from people like him and his family, the lesson never really fully makes sense to him. He makes friends with one of the boys in the camp when he goes exploring one day to this mysterious fence. Though he listened to Shmuel's stories, he never truly understood what it meant to live in those camps, or to be taken away from your homes and to just be suddenly thrown in trucks and brought into this unknown place. As seen in chapter 16, Bruno discussed with his sister the true meaning of the camp. Although all he gets out of it is that they are the opposite or something like that, and behind the fence are the Jews, but he still had no idea what the Jews are or where they came from. To the very end of the novel, when he tragically dies in a Nazi gas chamber, Bruno remains fundamentally ignorant of the real purpose of Auschwitz. Despite remaining unaware of historical and political context in which he lives, Bruno's childlike innocence endows him with an important virtue that other characters in the novel lack. Namely, Bruno has the capacity to keep an open mind. The adults in the novel have all settled opinions about what's occurring with Auschwitz and in Europe more broadly. Even Bruno's sister, Gretel, graduates from playing with dolls to closely tracking Germany's progress in the war and mindlessly echoing prejudices against Jews. By contrast, Bruno lacks preconceived notions about Germany, Jews, and any essential differences between them. It is precisely this lack of formal prejudice that allows Bruno to befriend Shmuel, the Jewish boy he meets one day while walking along the fence. Bruno's friendship with Shmuel provides the main arc for the development of his character. When the two boys first meet, Bruno is still quite self-centered and proves unable to really listen to what Shmuel has to say about his life and experience. But with time, however, Bruno grows increasingly introspective, starts to notice his own selfish behaviors, and learns to see things through Shmuel's eyes. Even as the novel moves forward to its tragic conclusion, Bruno demonstrates a powerful sense of empathy and with responsibility for his friend. We see his generosity a few times throughout the book. For example, in chapter 15, when Bruno shared a few pieces of chicken with his hungry friend, or when he would bring food every time he went to go visit his friend by the fence. Or in chapter 19, where he promised his friend he would meet his father. So all in all, Bruno was a very generous and kind and empathetic young boy. And I feel that the author used Bruno to explain the true tragedy of the Holocaust is very important and very very powerful, and it makes sense. We see no bias and no preconceived notions, and it allows kids to really understand what really happened and to try and understand it from someone like them. To move on to another character, Shmuel. He's a 9-year-old Jewish boy who has been imprisoned in Auschwitz, or Auschwitz camp, along with his grandfather, father and brother. He was separated from his mother. Shmuel's family used to live in another part of Poland, where daily life underwent a series of chilling changes. One day, his mother announced that every time he left the house, he needed to wear this armband bearing the Star of David. And not long after, soldiers forced Jewish families like Shmuel's into ghettos, where they lived in extremely cramped quarters until being shipped by train to Auschwitz. Shmuel described his time in the ghettos as there was 11 of them living in one singular room, and there was this one boy who used to always hit him when something bad happened. So it was horrible circumstances to be living in. And in addition to constant hunger and its wasting effect on his body, Shmuel struggles with fear and depression. As a 9-year-old who doesn't comprehend the broader forces that have conspired to make his people suffer, Shmuel also feels overwhelmed by confusion. For Shmuel, his budding friendship with Bruno also feels his budding friendship with Bruno offers him respite from the harsh reality of life in its camp. Yet this friendship also brings some frustrations, particularly when he senses that Bruno is either incapable or unwilling to consider his perspective on the camp. In the end, however, Shmuel loses his grandfather and his father. His friendship and Bruno loses his grandfather and his father, and his friendship with Bruno provides meaningful companionship through these terrifying final moments of his life. So, father. Bruno's father, known simply as Father in the novel, is a commanding officer in the Nazi Party who takes charge of operations for the Auschwitz camp in Poland. Father has spent all of his adult life in military service. He fought in the German army during World War II. Following the war, he rose through the ranks of the Nazi Party. In the months before the beginning of the novel, Adolf Hitler promoted Father to the rank of commandant, then shortly thereafter offered him the position at Auschwitz. Whereas Father's own father champions his achievements, the women in his life feel less pleased with his involvement in the war. Mother constantly argues with Father about the hardships his work situation has caused their family. Grandmother goes even further, vocally denouncing her son's involvement with the Nazis and proclaiming her disgust for Germany's military actions. Despite these critics, Father remains staunch in his commitment to the Nazi Party and his overreaching ideals. In particular, he upholds the standard Nazi narrative the other European nations treated Germany unfairly after World War I, and that the German extermination of Jews provides a method for correcting the great wrong. The last character I'm going to talk about, and the last thing I'm going to speak on, is Mother. Bruno's mother, is known simply as Mother in the novel, is the struggling wife of a commanding officer in the Nazi Party. Whereas her husband spends most of his time working, Mother spends her time caring for their 2 children, managing the family's servants, and presiding over every detail of the family's home. She resents her husband's unbending commitment to his career, and though she complies with his job requires the family to leave Berlin, she inwardly resists the decision. Though Mother frequently has the courage to argue with Father about matters related to family life, she does not speak out directly against his work or his involvement with the Nazi Party. In their new home at Auschwitz camp, Mother's antagonistic relationship with her husband takes its toll. She grows increasingly disenchanted with her life, and she exhibits signs of worsening depression. As her sense of isolation and desperation reaches its peak, she strikes up a relationship with the handsome young soldier named Lieutenant Cutler. The personal hardship mother experiences, and particularly the final loss of her son, symbolizes the collateral damage from her husband's commitment to the ideals of the German fatherland. That's all I have to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. All what we have is everything, Umnia. Barawa, 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 barawa for this outstanding presentation. And I told you early on that we are going to learn from you. And we have learned a lot from you. Thank you very much, Abit and Omnia.
Okay.
And again, we are very proud of you to have you here. And this is, again, I say, it's an outstanding presentation. And I like the way you try to divide the story into the novel itself, the author, the novel itself, and then you give that sort of summary for the novel, and then the way you describe and you spoke about the individuals. That is, we don't see it so often here in this place. But thank you very much. Thank you very much. To start with, yeah, of course, we'll talk about it a little. And then I read the story, by the way. I read the book and I started to watch a movie, but unfortunately, because I was on call today, I couldn't find the time to watch the whole movie. And كنت أتمنى إنه دكتور خالد يكون معنا الليلة عشان يدينا وجهة نظره في movie. And I cannot comment on the movie because I did not finish watching the movie, but it looks very good. And great job, Omnia.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sakina. So I read the story and I like it. I like the story very much. The language of the story is straightforward. And
yes.
I think John Boyne, by writing this book, he meant it to be to young readers. But obviously, the book went far beyond the young readers. And I'm sure every adult who read this book, he will fall into love with it. So that is the language. The language is very simple. And the dialogue is very simple as well. The characters are very few, that you don't need to go forward and backwards to understand the story. You can just go straight. So I like the story very much. And the other thing which is good about the story is that the characters themselves are very simple. And the more you read through the story, you will love every one of them, no matter how good or bad they are. But you definitely you love Bruno. He's a young guy. He's only 9, but I believe you agree with me. He's very clever.
Yes, he is.
Although sometimes he's very naughty. He calls his sister a hopeless sister. But by the way, you are the elders, are you?
Yes.
Elders, yeah. And you have your brother who's younger than that.
And
yeah.
My twin.
And yourself.
Yes.
Oh,
I'm a twin sister, so أنا وأختي آية 17 سنة. And then Muhammad
is younger than you.
Yes.
Yeah. So do you come in contact with your brother, not necessarily to call you, or you call him hopeless, but do you think
often
that happens in some families? Yeah, definitely.
Yes, I think it's very common as well. It happens in most families for sure.
Yes.
Especially with older sister and younger brother dynamic. Definitely.
Yes, absolutely. You're right. We see that. I see that. My family, with my daughters, with my son. So, and what I meant to say is that I think John Boyne is trying to incorporate the family values. Yeah, I feel the Bruno's relationship with his sister, yes, sometimes it's naughty, but he's very good to his mom. Good, although he expresses his views very loudly and very clearly, but he's very respectful to his mom and his dad and to his friends and everything. He's very loyal to his friends, by the way.
Yes.
Daniel and Martin and those who left them behind. He's very loyal. What else? So what my question is that what exactly drew your attention and you wanted to present this story? Is it the Holocaust atrocities? Is it humanity, or what is it?
I think
and you said, okay, I'm going to present this story.
Me personally, I read this book a while back for the first time, and I was very interested in history and stuff like this. And when I read about the Holocaust, and it really took a really big effect on me. So when I read this book, I found it very interesting, and it was very good to see the Holocaust from a different perspective. And I just found it very excellent that the characters are very simple, as you said, and it was very straightforward to understand. And I just thought that everyone should know this book. And I just think it's very important for everyone to know this book, and it's very important for history. And it made me want to present it because I want to show everyone this incredible book. You know what I mean?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I just would like to give the audience a few points about Irish history or Irish writers. And there are a couple of Irish writers. Not many people think they are Irish. Number one is James Joyce. Probably you heard Hotna Limia, sometimes she quotes some of the James Joyce quotes from James Joyce books, and he's described as the most influential Irish writer in the 20th century. His famous novel is Ulysses. It's an international, one of the 100 novels. He's very famous. Oscar Wilde, you heard of him, probably he's Irish. George Bernard Shaw. George Bernard Shaw is also an Irish writer, and Samuel Beckett. One other Irish character, you know him very well, all of you as doctors, Mr. Kitchener, Lord Kitchener, who is he's not the founder, actually. The medical school, the Khartoum Medical School, was named after him. Actually, Kitchener did not establish the school. The school was established by Sir Lee Stack. Kitchener, after winning the Karari battle, he ruled Sudan as commander or ruler for Sudan for 2 years, from 1898 to 1900. And then Sir Lee Stack came after him, and he established this is just, and he's known for his cruelty. He's very cruel, but that's not literature anyway, that's his history. So I can come back, but I will give the floor a chance to ask questions, to ask Umnia, if anybody who has any question to Umnia. And thank you very much, Umnia. Thank you.
Shukran.
Thank you.
Shukran.
Thank you. If anybody wants to ask Umnia or to give any ideas about the story, some people raised their hands. Who are they? Just go back. Participants. Yeah, Sakina.
شكرا يا دكتور. شكرا يا دكتور. شكرا يا أمنية. يعني I really liked your how you tackled presenting the book, how you divided it, and you gave us your perspective. You gave us يعني حتى الناس اللي ما قروا الكتاب أكيد يعني أديتيهم good briefing about the book. كنت دايرة أسألك أكيد أنت قريتي أنا فرانك journals about the Holocaust. In contrast, how can you the portray? I mean, I know that you mentioned in the beginning that one of the criticism Jewish thought إنه هو البرسبكتيف بتاعه عن الهولوكوست ما كان very deep to يعني to support البورتريه بتاعهم عن الهولوكوست. I know الستوري بتاعت أنا فرانك يعني most of the kids in an earlier age قروها including my daughter. فكنت دايرة أسألك يعني if you can contrast about how Anna Frank as a Jewish girl portrayed the Holocaust and the atrocities اللي حصلت فيها, و how this book who tried to contrast both from the point of view of a kid whose father was the person who was بيرتكب الجرائم دي والطفل من الناحية الثانية. فخليكي تردي, وعندي سؤال ثاني لك. شكرا.
أنا ما قريت Anne Frank journals actually, لكن we talked about her in school a lot. Honestly, Anne Frank, she ended up having to hide from these soldiers, from being taken away, and I know that she lived a very hard life, and she used to write about it in her journals and stuff like this. And it was her experiences and her true what really happened and things like this. And I feel like it showed a very good account of the Holocaust, and it talked about like what really happened and what really went down, in contrast to this book where it was just the perspective. It was more like a fiction or fable, and when it was written in the eyes of a 9-year-old boy who was actually not experiencing what Shmuel was experiencing in the camps. So when we read about it and compare it to what's actually happened in the Holocaust, it doesn't give us an actual account of what happened. Instead, we get an outside perspective of someone who basically doesn't know what's going on. So so Bruno didn't really know what's going on in the camp, and compared to Anne Frank, she was the one experiencing it. So I think when it comes to learning about the Holocaust, I feel Anne Frank is a way better option than this book, because it gives a very vague idea of what happened in the Holocaust. As I said earlier, the critics were saying that it takes away from the presence of death that permeated in the camps. Whereas in Anne Frank's journals, we get to understand the true horrors and what really happened to her and why she had to hide and why she felt scared and her true feelings as a Jewish young girl at that time. Whereas in this book, we hear a little bit about it, but it's just a conversation between a boy and a boy named Shmuel, who's a Jewish boy who was able to even walk around freely and be able to have these conversations for a year long with Bruno, and a boy who was a son of a commandant. And in reality, Shmuel wouldn't have actually been able to come to the fence and talk for hours during the afternoon. It wasn't really realistic. So I feel Anne Frank's journals are a lot more realistic in contrast to The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, which just gave it kind of toned down the atrocities and how horrible it was. How horrible it was in reality.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
انت قرأت الكتاب وانت في مدرسة في انجلند ولا في دولة عربية؟
أنا في إيرلندا Ireland.
Okay. Because I was going to ask you يعني معظم politics of looking at how a Jewish يعني milked the story of the Holocaust, and الفكرة دائما من وجهة نظر المسلمين والعرب بيفتكروا إنه most of the story was hugely exaggerated and overblown. I don't know how is the discussion. I mean, if you were in a school في مدرسة في يوروب والله يعني في بينكم انتوا أكيد عندك زملاء وأصدقاء هم ممكن يكونوا مور من الميدل إيست ولا من المسلمين وزردين إنهم عرب ولا لا. How is the contrast of the conversation about the Holocaust and how the politics of it? يمكن السؤال يكون كبير شوية عليك لكن I'm curious of how the young people are يعني الconversation اللي بتدور بيناتهم عن الحاجة دي. شكرا.
شكرا. شكرا للسؤال. هنا في إيرلندا we did speak about it during history classes and stuff like this. But it isn't, it's more like they tell you the facts about what happened. And it's like it's not really opinionated, as you can say. Like it's they talk about, oh, these amount of people died in the camps, and Hitler did this, and the camps were like this, and that's more how it's taught. It's not really like, I know what you said, in the Middle East and in Arab countries, they talk about how it's greatly exaggerated and things like this. They don't really say that here. I think it's very controversial here in Ireland. I know Ireland is a country, we don't really talk about things like this. We're a very neutral country. Like even during World War II, we didn't really take part in anything. So in schools especially, they don't really take part in very controversial conversations, and they mainly, when they teach it, and when they teach it, is not for a very long time, and it's not a very big conversation. When they teach it, they just mainly say what's the like widely accepted version of what happened. Like the Hitler was like, oh, the perfect race were blonde people, blue eyes, and like that. And then they say he created the camps for correcting the land, and he killed the Jewish people, and so stuff like that. It wasn't. And it mainly put Hitler in a very bad light, like he's a very horrible person, which I still personally, I think he's a very horrible person regardless. But he was the most horrible human being on the whole planet, and he deserves to die. And like he was put in a very, very bad light. Whereas when I'm getting from what you told me, that the Middle East or African countries think that it was very exaggerated. I don't think they don't really talk about it like that here. And when we talk about it, we don't really, like when we talk about it as us, like the younger people together, I think it's also like the widely accepted version that the Holocaust were just bad and everything like this. I know in Muslim countries and Arab countries, there's the whole saying that it's exaggerated and things like this. But between us younger people and us in Europe, and especially in Ireland, in the UK, and I'm assuming America, there's just the widely accepted version of what happened, and Hitler is bad, and the Jewish people 3 million of them died and stuff like that. So there's not really much of the controversial conversation that you were kind of implying, but yeah. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Umnia, for this very good talk and answers. Now, I'll give you just few hints about the Irish politics and the Jews in Ireland. Ireland's history is very complicated by the Irish War and being a colony for the UK for 700 years. Imagine Ireland north and south was a colony for well, UK or Great Britain for 700 years. They got their independence in 1921. So it's very recently, according to, or in relation to other European countries. Now, Irish, they don't talk openly about politics because it's very complicated, but behind the scenes, they are very supportive to the Palestinians. That is just because the Jews, now in Ireland, you don't see Jews openly. They don't show themselves openly. Even in institutions, they don't show themselves as Jews. In hospitals, nobody comes to the hospital and put his name as Jew. We see people describe themselves as Muslims, as Roman Catholics, as whatever, but no Jew come and say, I'm a Jew. And it's very sensitive because at some stage when Ireland was a colony to Britain, the Jews were on the side of, this is what we just heard about, on the side of the UK. So when the UK is out of Ireland, south and north, then they started to hide. The Jews started to hide, and they don't talk openly. We see them in media, we see them in TVs and dialogues, but they don't show. So that is at the adult level. At the young readers level, at the students level, nobody talk about it. If you talk about the Holocaust, they talk about the Holocaust, they talk about it as, yes, it's a great atrocities, the Jews are, but they don't give their own ideas about, well, in comparison to the Muslims' problems or the Palestinians, nobody talks openly, as Omnia said. So it's very complicated, but the Irish society, they love this book. They love this book. They love the other book which was presented here some times ago, if you remember, guys, Man's Search for what?
Ordinary Men.
Huh?
Ordinary Men.
La. Another book by Frankel, something, Man's Search for reality, not for reality. It's the same type of book. It also, that book was talking about the Holocaust and the atrocities, and can somebody remember the name of the book by Frankel? It was presented here. معنى الرجل الإنسان يبحث عن المعنى. Man search for meaning. You remember Abdullah? You remember everybody else? Yeah, it's the same thing. So they love these books, and I remember 10 years ago there was a competition in the area where we live about, they gave the young readers this book to read and to draw a poster. And my daughters were working day and night to get the prize. And so that is what's happening in Irish politics. ندي الفرصة لحنان حليم. تفضل يا حنان.
شكرا لكم جميعا. شكرا يا سليمان. بحييك يا أمنية، ويعني I salute you for your style and your confidence.
Thank you.
And I say to you, go on girl, go on girl. أنا الحقيقة حأبدأ أنا شفت الفيلم يا سليمان، وفعلا في شوية نقاط مختلفة بين الفيلم والكتاب. الحاجة اللي عجبتني في الفيلم، معلش همشي الحتة دي، he say by John Bedman, if I'm pronounce it correctly, قال إنه childhood is measured out by sounds and smell and sights before the dark hour of reason grows. يعني حقيقة لخص الكتاب في الجملتين دي. الكتاب طبعا يعني story displayed السايكولوجي بتاع الهولوكوست بالشكل الميبي ما اليهود ما انبسطوا منه شديد. الحاجة الثانية displayed في الكتاب children innocence reaction لحاجات awful و horrible و evil events. وبالرغم من انه قلت الجملة دي بتاعت children innocence reactions، في contrast كبير جدا between كريتل وبرونو. كريتل أخت برونو، لأنه أنا لسه بعتبرها طفلة، لكن ورغم إنه درسهم أستاذ واحد وحاول يعني يشبعهم بالهولوكوست belief، so he managed to indoctrinate كريتل but not برونو، وهي بقت obsessed بين النازيز belief. يعني ده يوريك الكونتراست في الحتة دي. في حاجة ما قدرت أوقف نفسي منها خالص، يعني إنه أفكر فيها، إنه الهوريبل هيستوري ده والهوريبل ايفنتس اللي حصلت لليهود، كيف البني آدم بيقدر يجي، سوري يا أمي أنا بتكلم عربي مرات كبر حصل. كيف البني آدم بيجي يقدر to inflict the same evil يعني acts على human beings تانيين، وأنا بتكلم هنا عن الفلسطينيين. معلش طبعا الناس هنا بيقولوا لك انت القصه لما تتعامل فيلم مفروض تفصل بيناتهم تماما، خلاص القصه دي انتهت ده بقى فيلم. لكن ما قدرت برضه to stop myself between comparing the movie and the details of the book. الموفي ركزت less على الكونفليكت الحاصل بين كريتل and her brother، وركزت أكثر، وبرضه ما ذكر يعني في الكتاب they didn't talk about the mother of Bruno as somebody who's refusing and objecting her husband's behavior, but as being more bored from where she is, no friends, no. That was in the book, but in the movie she has more يعني الفكرة بتاعتها about the Holocaust and objecting and refusing her husband's behavior was يعني very clear. يعني الرول بتاعها في الموفي كان أوضح وأكثر يعني عنده emotionally impact أكثر. أعتقد ده كل الحاجة اللي عندي، وشكرا جزيلا لأمنية، وأنا بتمنى لك مستقبل رهيب، وإن شاء الله ربنا يوفقك في دخولك لهذا السن.
شكرا لك يا حنان. شكرا حنان. أمنية عايزة تردي عشان ندي فرصة لزول ثانية؟
حاجة سريعة بس. أنا personally ما قدرت أحضر الموفي because my mom watched it and my heart couldn't handle it. I just couldn't watch. I don't like sad movies at all, so I couldn't watch it. But I did watch it a little bit, and I agree with you, Yani. In the book, Bruno's mother she's just a housewife. She just takes care of the house, looks after Bruno and stuff. But as you said in the movie, she's completely just does not agree with the father's actions and so on. And Gretel in the book, she just said they mentioned that that she was hanging up like maps of Germany and she was trying to see what's happening, but they didn't really show her to be as one who was like hailing Hitler all the time, or she truly believed in it. And also with the teacher, it showed him in the book to be constantly teaching history and geography, and he didn't. And although Bruno enjoyed art and reading, he thought that those are stupid, so he only taught them history and geography. But you told me now that in the movie that he's teaching them about the Hitler and all this stuff. I think that's mainly because of like the controversy and how if you're going to make a movie about the Holocaust, that you should truly they should truly show what's actually happening with the Holocaust. I think it would have been something that would have sparked controversy, and that's why they made it so gruesome and changes so much from the book. Because I agree that I remember when I was watching the movie, it was completely different from the book.
Yeah.
Also my.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. شكرا يا أمنية. نصرالدين, go ahead نصرالدين.
شكرا سليمان. لقيت عبد الله قد قبليه مش هنا عبد الله؟
لا أنت قبل عبد الله اتسين.
شكرا.
go ahead.
عبد الرحمن دارين نسمع من عبد الرحمن برضه لو ممكن. عبد الرحمن ده is a young guy, a psychologist from Chicago.
شكرا عبد الله. Hello.
Go ahead يا نصرالدين.
I was just one question أمنية. Do you think the author was fair when he spoke about the father, and all through the story he's describing him as a very very strict and very hard with his son. But in two occasions, he mentioned about his good side, if you can say the good side. When Maria, the lady, with the serving the family, was talking to Romeo, she said that he told him that his dad was very kind to her sometime in the past, and he was kind to her mother. And when her mother was sick, he was very supportive. And at the end of the story, when he came to that conclusion that which it seemed that he understood that his son was died inside the camp. So I think in these two occasions, he describing him bringing the good side of himself, and in the other, the whole story, he's talking about him as a hard, tough person. Do you think he has been fair with the father? And the other thing that, and I think talking about earlier about the children, kids with each other at home, they'll be very kind of naughty. But I think at the end, when Gretel has been with her brother, they have been all the time, they are not agreeing with each other and they're fighting. But when she missed him at the end of the book, she missed him according to the author. So just wanted to comment on these 2 points. Shukran.
Shukran, Baba. Yes, so in 2 points in the book, as you said, throughout most of the book, father, as he's in the book, or commandant, he is painted as a very tough man. He not the type of father that Bruno would go up to him and just, chat to on a normal day. Throughout the book, in capital letters, his office was mentioned as out of bounds at all time with no exceptions. So we get the notion that he's a very strict and tough man, and an even stricter soldier and commandant. Except, as you said, in 2 points in the book, when Maria was talking to Bruno, because of course Bruno was very upset about traveling or leaving his old home from Berlin, and he was upset about it, and of course he didn't have anyone else to talk to, so he complained to Maria, the maid, and he was like, how my father is just, he doesn't listen to me, and how could he move us all the way over here for his work, and so on and so forth. And Maria mentioned that when she was younger, her mother used to work for their family as well, and of course Bruno's grandfather helped out that family a lot, and so did father himself. He helped out Maria when she needed help with he gave her a job, a house, and food, so she thought very highly of him. So we see him in a different light at that point in the book. He's seen as, he has a different side to him, a kind side. He's not only this cold and angry commandant, he can also be a kind and warm-hearted man at times as well. And then also at the end of the book, we see what you said, the effect that losing Bruno had on the family. Like, for example, Gretel, they used to fight all the time, and then suddenly when she loses Bruno, the effect was so grand on her. She used to cry all the time, and she didn't know what to do anymore. And so the same thing with the mother, she became so delusional. She stayed for months and months on end waiting for Bruno to come back, but like in the end, of course, he's not going to come back. And she ended up going back to Berlin hoping that he's going to be there, but she didn't come back. So we see the effect that had on the mother and the Gretel. But not only did it have a great effect on those two people who we know themselves have another side to them, it had an effect on this cold-hearted, angry man. And we see this at the end of the book, where I will just quote the book there for a second. He ended up tracing the, sorry, 1 second. When he went to the fence and he was going back to the area where the pile of clothes was found when Bruno was lost, he ended up following it step by step, and when he lifted, he found a large gap enough for a small person to crawl underneath, and he followed through logically step by step, and when he did, he found that his legs seemed to stop working right, as if they couldn't hold up his body any longer. And he ended up sitting on the ground in almost the exact same position as Bruno he had every afternoon for a year, although he didn't cross his legs beneath him. And then forward it goes on, and he goes, some soldiers came by, the Allies came to get father and to bring him back to basically imprison him. He didn't mind what happened to him anymore. He went with them without any complaint because he didn't really mind what they did to him anymore. So we see that the father is going looking for him like crazy. He's trying to understand what's happened to his son, because after a year of Bruno's disappearance, he's become very like delusional, thinking about him every day and every night and every morning throughout the whole entire day. And then he started to look for him. Hopefully he can find some answer to where happened to Bruno, like looking all over his land and looking all over the fence just to find some sort of clue. زي المثل السوداني السيد الرايحة بيفتح خشم البقرة. So he was looking everywhere for this. He was looking everywhere for his son. Until he found out what happened. So through this, we see the other side to Bruno's dad. He not only is he an old, cold and furious and angry man, he also has another side to him where he does enjoy exploration like Bruno, and he does have a kind side like Mother and Gretel. He's not just this angry man we see throughout the whole book. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much, Umnia. Abdullah محمد خير، تفضل. go ahead.
لو ممكن رافع قبالي كان عبد الرحمن، وين الحقيقه داير ونزل يده داير اسمعه.
عبد الرحمن نزل يده،
فلو ممكن يا عبد الرحمن تفضل بعدك.
If you are there, عبد الرحمن, go ahead.
Yep, thank you so much. أنا رفعت دي ونزلتها لأنه لقيت السؤال اللي أنا كنت مفكر فيه واتسأل already. But since I got a chance, thank you so much for the elaborated and clear and concise introductory presentation, Omnia. I didn't get a chance to read through the whole book, but through your outstanding presentation, I got a pretty clear picture about the content of the book. So thank you.
Thank you.
One of the points that I'll kind of mention is just contrasting between what I've experienced, because I've been into a middle school environment here in US, like how this topic in particular being introduced to kids from younger ages and elaborated more like through their education career, and comparing that to a glimpse that I got about how this topic is addressed in Ireland, and I guess in Europe in general, maybe. In America here, they had that under like a social study class, so there's a discussion about that, even though still the dominant narrative is the typical kind of a most widely accepted narrative, which is also kind of a more associated with the historical references. And there won't be any kind of a descendant or anything like that. So kids will be introduced to like similar books. I remember one of them called Refugees, also kind of talking about the Holocaust from the perspective of a young child who had to endure those atrocities with his family. Another book like the Diary of Anna Frank, I guess that's another one, kind of an outstanding. All the kids by like 6th grade will have a clear idea about all the details of that book, and they will have discussions. Like from my perspective as someone who's kind of a mental health, we got a couple of kids who kind of were pretty upset about that book, and like they have so much emotions associated with reading it. So it's interesting to just compare and contrast. In my view, I think it's a very outstanding thing for an author to just come up with the imaginary personality to kind of give instead of numbers and just newscasting, giving it a face, a voice, and a personality, so we kind of get to empathize with those people and what they had to endure and what they went through during that time. Another thing, like one of the movies. It's a book, but the movie version kind of more associated with what I'm gonna say now. It's called like The Man in the High Castle. The movie version of that included like a family of a high Nazi command. Like I think he was the top second leader. It's another like imaginary character because there were no character with that name. The book was talking about like a universe where the Nazis and like the Germans would the people of Germany won the Second World War, and how the world may look like if they got to win. So in that book, the author was just talking about how a family of like a dynamics in a family of a Nazi leader may look like, and another at the movie they also had the wife in that kind of a template situation where it's like the house wife, and she doesn't get to have an opinion. She just follow what is expected from her. She like make the what they call it, like the sister Nazi club in the neighborhood, and get with other women in the neighborhood and do all the things for the fatherland, as they used to call it. So it's another kind of a just interesting comparison. When you're summarizing the book, I got that, like I just remember that movie. One of the things that I wanted to just have your opinion or just have your perspective about is, like, I know this this book in particular, and all kind of a book alike, are just taught in the school to get younger kids or younger people the opportunity to learn from history and learn from like the biases we have as a human race, as a species in general, and kind of avoid it in their personal life, even though that feels like a long connection. But in my view, that's the kind of the ultimate goal. So the Holocaust in like within the bigger picture of all atrocities we committed as a human species, how that like fell. Did you get to learn about other like other genocide as atrocities like committed by our hands, like in, for example, the indigenous people in the north, in the Western Hemisphere, the Afghan War in China, all those things? Like, did you get to learn about all those things and putting them in a context of like, this is the bigger picture, this is what we've done, and this is what we want to get? Or how that look like from your perspective as someone who's going through the education career? And thank you again for the lovely introduction.
Thank you for the question. Actually, I feel quite strongly about what you just asked me. Compared to like the Holocaust and like a few other things that happened, like World War II, World War I, like the things in the textbooks, we haven't really learned much about like genocides and other things that happen. Of course, in Ireland, we learned about the Easter Rising and their own personal country, the history of the history of the country itself. But we actually did not learn about much of the other things that happened in our hands as the human race. Like, for example, all the different genocides you said. And like there are multiple genocides ongoing currently in our day-to-day, like even in the Uyghur, I think it's the Uyghur Muslims in China, like there's a genocide happening over there. And there's multiple like things still happening in Africa and so on, in like Afghanistan and all these places. And unless you join like one of the subjects that we have here is politics and society, and it still doesn't really cover much of these things, but unless you join a class like that, that's pretty much the only time you get to talk about or discuss these very important things that happened in society and things that how they affected our history and the future. So I feel like we should talk about it more, because we don't talk about it enough in school, and that's why things are repeating themselves. That's why genocides are still happening. That's why in China they're killing Muslims currently in this moment. That's why people in America or in Europe have preconceived notions about Muslims or about Christians or about whoever. Like that's why we have so many things wrong in our society like as of today. That's why I feel that we should talk about these things more often. But sadly, in our education system currently in Ireland, we don't talk about stuff like that enough. We rarely do. Like the one we talked about the most was the Easter Rising. 1916 Rising is when we got independence from the English ages ago. But they taught that in primary for like a year and then they stopped. So here to answer your question, we don't really talk about it much. We don't talk about other things as much as we did with the Holocaust. It was just it's not really a main part of our education system here.
Yeah, I can imagine that, like them putting it the Easter you just mentioned, it's kind of their national image, so it does make sense to have it in the curriculum. But I was just watching a movie like last week called Exterminate All the Brutes. It's just like the narrator in the movie who's just saying that it would have been much easier if we can just point to Germany and say like what we've done is what it's represented in Germany, and then move on and kind of get to a new place where we're no longer kind of eliminated the past. But thank you for answering the question.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abdurrahman. Thank you, Umnia, again and again and again. Thank you very much. Abdullah, go ahead. Abdullah Muhammad Khair.
الله يسلمك. أول حاجة شكرا يا أمنية. يعني you presented this book brilliantly بصراحة يعني. While you're presenting it, I was chatting down some يعني point. And I'm going to repeat يعني what Suleiman had said. إنه we struggle with how to do stories for years here. You went through, you gave a brief introduction about yourself, and then you spoke about the author and why did you select the book and what happened to the publication, and the summary was brilliant, yani, and I like the way you analyzed the character. I think we're going to, you gave us a model we're going to adopt here. بصراحة يعني الحتة الثانية I'm looking at I looked at the book معلش اسمحوا لي احكي قصة بسيط كده. I looked at the book from a very different angle. I have a friend here, my closest friend is from Darfur. He's from a place يعني where awful things have happened, similar to what happened in the Holocaust. Their villages were burned and everything. وانا لاحظت انه هو طوالي يعني resentful كان ففي حاجات كثيره في interaction كثير وكده. وقلت له سالته, he's a very close friend, قلت له why are you upset with مثلا the people of the capital for example? قال لي because they didn't do anything. لما قريت الكتاب انا الحاجه I told him because we didn't know. الكتاب ده لما قريت الكاركتر بتاع برونو ده اتذكرت اللي حصل لنا يعني بعدين اللي حصل لنا يعني we didn't know او الحقيقه we were not allowed. يعني we had one source of information which was the government information والكلام ده. الكتاب البوينت الثانيه المسافه بين the distance between evil and innocence is a family يعني. ويخليك تفكر انه all the يعني ال prejudice و discrimination all of that was taught يعني corruption of the culture يعني دي حاجات الناس to think about it وكده. عجبني لما قلت لدكتور سكينة إنه the way you was taught about the Holocaust was fact against opinion يعني. دي حاجة مهمة جدا. بعدين خلاني أتساءل ليه الناريتيف why the narrative of the Middle East people is different from the main narrative, that which is even accepted in Germany. فبفتكر انه في motivated reasoning يعني في الناس الميدل ايست، يعني الكونفليكت الحاصل لهم من اسرائيل والكونفليكت تخليه عنده دخل وذات يعني. بعدين البوينت الثانيه I think we need an absolute evil يعني النارتيف ما مهمه، هو النارتيف يعني it was taught يعني في in the frame of prejudice, discrimination and all of those. And I think even if it's not the absolute fact, it is important يعني to have something like that. ومرة ثانية أشكرك شديد يعني as I told you, you taught us and we're going to adopt your model for dealing with our story in the book club. شكرا يا أمنية، شكرا جزيلا، شرفتينا والله. شكرا.
شكرا لك يا عبد الله، شكرا أمنية. أيوة جو أهيد عايزة تعقبي ولا عندك أي كلام؟
بس حاجة صغيرة بس أعذر عن اللي قلته. There's the different narrative in different places. I can see where you can have gotten that from. I think it makes perfect sense يعني. In Germany, in the Middle East, where they have the different ideas about what happened in the Holocaust versus Europe and stuff like this. Maybe it's because of the conflict with Israel and Palestine. And I think it's very important to just put it out there that regardless of what happened in the past, people being killed is bad. Yani, the Holocaust is bad. What's happening in Palestine is bad. Even so, the Jews, something bad happened to them ages ago. It doesn't give them the right to do this now. Even so, the Middle Eastern people or the Palestinian people are being killed. Doesn't give us the right to prejudice everyone else. I feel like regardless, prejudice is bad, killing is bad, and I feel like that's very important to put out there. But I can understand why people might think in a certain way about different types of people according to what happened in the history. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much. Well, you made me laugh every time because I'm so interested. I'm so happy the way you honored us الليلة والله يا بنتي. شكرا جزيلا، كتر خيرك كثير جدا. أنا بخاطب السيدة أماني، ستي أماني لو معانا، ستي أماني لو تسمعينني، ستي أماني، أمنية دي الليلة محتاجة للزغرودة صغيرة جدا.
والله أول حاجة يعني I don't know what I have to say.
By the way والدة ابنتنا الكريمة أماني وأختنا عزيزة ووالدة بنتنا أمنية. ما واحدة كبيرة يعني، واحدة صغيرة كده، واحدة صغيرة.
والله أمنية أصلا زولة يعني ما شاء الله يعني، والليلة أثبتت لي إن هي she's really good. مخها كبير. بعدها خلاص ماشي كويس.
You're right والله. خيركم ويعني نهنيكم انتوا سيد نصر الدين بأمنية.
الله يخليكم.
تسلم.
الله يديكم العافية جميعا. أنا I see you يا أمنية as a lawyer or a politician, more of a lawyer or politician. معلش دي مجرد أفكار يعني. I don't advocate إنك تمشي كده ولا تمشي، and I know you won't take what I say. لكن that is marvelous. That is outstanding. شكرا لك
يا سليمان.
أيوة
لو تسمح لي أنا ما رفعت يدي.
Go ahead.
I was intrigued by كلامك اللي قلته لأمنية. Actually, I have a different maybe a profession for her.
All right.
أنا أفتكر she will make a fantastic professor. To give you why, أول حاجة she articulated very well البرزنتيشن بتاعتها زي ما عبد الله اتكلم إنها قسمتها. she introduced الكاتب وبعدين اتكلمت عن يعني وجات للرواية وبعدين الشخوص ذاتهم البرنسبل بتاع الرواية. فيعني قدمت بعدين the way she answered questions. يعني البرزنتيشن كان في حاجة تانية. يا أمنية you don't know me، بس ده أقول لك اللي أنا قلت بروفيسور لأنه أنا في الأكاديمية دي forever. I can see when I got a talent يعني زي الكوتش بتاع السوكر يعني أو الفوتبول. When he sees talents بيفتكر إنه this should be cultivated to be a professor. واحد الحضور يعني you are mindful of what you are trying to do. اثنين you connected with the audience من أول دقيقة. يعني this is very important لأنك either you shut them off أو يكونوا متابعينك. You succeeded in the way you presented الرواية والأوثر والشخوص بتاعت الرواية. وبعدين يعني you gave an audience the feeling that you are talking to every one of them. مش أنا عندي presentation وفي wall بينك وبين الaudience. لا يعني الaudience عشان كده it was a lively presentation. It was very articulate. The way you answer questions جميلة جدا. عندك حضور ما شاء الله تبارك الله ما شاء الله.
حضور طاغي.
حضور جميل. ايوه يعني حضور جميل جدا يعني. وبعدين you are so much يعني قدرت توصي لاي زول التوبيك السبجكت الهيستوري الهيومن سفرينجز كله انت ده you are very passionate about it. فالبرزنتيشن كانت بباشن رائع جدا جميل جميل لدرجه يعني مدهشه بامانه. داير اسالك سؤال لو سمحت لي سليمان صغير about the style. يعني انت as a young reader وقريت الروايه بتاعت جون ده والطريقه اللي بيتكلم بيها عزل الكلام الجرافيك way. to give you an example لما مثلا برونو يكون كده سيربرايز بحاجه وبعدين يقول لك his mouse makes a letter O ويدينه تسترتش كده. وبعدين لما نيجي برضو يمشي في برلين والناس قاعدين وبيضحكوا يعني وعنده الديالوج اللي في راسه ده. وبعدين لما نمشي محلات الفيجيتابلز والحاجات دي يغمض عيونه وبعدين تسميل البتاعات دي. وبعدين الكونتراست طوالي لما مشى هناك وشاف انه ما في حتى الافتر ولا في فرح ولا في حاجات. فالستايل كيف يعني للهناية دي. بعدين بايزو يعني ما هناي انا I visited الكامب ده 4 اخذتها يعني كانت بلاند هناي. ما مشيت لانه والله انا يعني داير امشي هناك لكن كانت بريبيرد المساله بانه يعني از فيزيت نمشي نشوف حاجات كثير يعني زي وارس وتمشي تشوف البيانو بتاع شوبين في النايل وبيت وحاجات كثيره. المسافه 4 ساعات بالعربيه تقريبا لحد ما تمشي الهنايه دي. وانت تكلمت عن الهيومن سفرنج هي is one. لكن الناس دي الفيري كرياتيف بانه قدروا يخلوا كل العالم ما ينسوا التراجيدي اللي حصلت دي. ونحن مثلا في دارفور ما قدرنا نوديها للعالم كحاجه برضه هيومن سفرنج يعني. فده حاجه كده على جنب. انا I applaud you for thinking about ما بس دي لانه درسوك في المدرسه وin absence of other thing. لكن human suffering ما يعني is human suffering period يعني. فالناس دي very very creative عملوا شغل كتير جدا في اي حته في ميوزيوم واسع حتى في study abroad في الحته ذاتها محل الكام ده جيبوا الستودنت من الجامعه والى اخره يورونا الحصل هناك. وزر انك تشعر انه شويه القصه يعني زادوا ليها بعض الحاجات عشان يكون في sustained effect ليها طول الوقت. كده علق لي على الستايل. وانا I thank you again a wonderful presentation. if you consider Dr. Suleiman's suggestion as a lawyer or a politician, please consider a professor. Thank you.
شكرا جدا.
شكرا. معلش اخوي صغير ايوه بس اعلق على الستايل اللي قلته. just to I think kind of answer your question. ما فهمت الquestion تماما لكن I thought the style was very effective that he used in the book. It was very good and very effective. Just to show the contrast of Berlin, the very happy place with cafes and people and laughing and talking, and how busy it gets on a Saturday afternoon. compared to Auschwitz, where it's completely quiet and there's nothing else to do except for Bruno to look out his window and look at this long fence and look at all the tired and the sad people, and this place that made him cold and unsafe. He used the style that he used. It effectively showed the readers the big difference between these two places and what happened in Nazi Germany. The difference between like how we're living now compared to where they brought him to these camps that were bad and cold and just, you know, what can you say, Yani? Just scary and unfriendly. Through his style, we understand this, and I think it was very effective and very good. And about the human suffering as well, maybe what I realized throughout the news and stuff, that things that are happening in Sudan right now are not very much on the news. Like you said that they were very clever in making everyone not forget about the Holocaust, and except what happened in Darfur, we weren't so successful in making them remember. I'm not too sure what it is, but I feel like there's some societal, social issues, because whenever it comes to the West having some problems, that's all over the news. That's everywhere on social media. Like I get it first thing on my phone, I get a notification and something happened. But when it comes to some things that happen in Africa or the Middle East, it never comes. So I think it's something less to do with them being like clever and they made it exaggerated, but more to do with maybe resources, maybe just their role in the world, and how, like, of course the Germans are very important and stuff. Maybe that's why they were remembered so much in history, and on like what happened in Darfur and stuff like this. Maybe it's just some sort of racial issue, I don't know. But I think yeah, in the end, I think all human suffering should be remembered, and how human suffering altogether shouldn't happen, and we should all be against. It should be us versus human suffering, and not us versus each other. You know, that's.
Thank you very much. I like the way the circle you put things together, your understanding, explanation, and the interpretation. You are very good in that. And والله يا بنتي هديتي شكرا لك.
كان I got chance يا اخواننا معاكم، انا ما رفعت يدي.
انت ما رفعت، تفضلي. Go ahead يا عالية النجم.
اهلا بكم. The first thing I need to say, really, I'm so proud about my granddaughter.
We are all proud of her.
Yes. And another thing is, really, I'm not get chance to read the book, and I'm not watch the movie too. But the way my lovely baby, she's represent the stuff is beautifully. And I feel like I read the book. And the other thing a lot of people talk about it, about what's going on in Africa or the Muslim area or in China. I think the Holocaust, it happened because the lobby of the control the whole world. They want the people to think is what happened in the Holocaust is really bad stuff. But they don't think about what happened now. The same what the last speaker, he said about the Darfur, what's going on in Darfur. And now they talk. No one care about the Black people. No one care about what's going on over there. Because we're the same what, if you go back to the Ukraine, everyone has opened his eyes and he start talking about it and forget what's going on. Because it's the blue eyes, the same what they say, blue eyes and white skin and brown hair. But I'm so proud of my daughter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm very sorry, Sakina. I'm very sorry لأنه أخرناك شوية، لكن go ahead.
No, it's okay. I was يعني دايرة أبدأ أقول إنه ما شاء الله والله أكبر، ربنا يحفظك ويغطي عليكي ويحقق لك كل الأمانة اللي أنت عايزاها. I don't think إنه في contradiction بين انك انت تدخل الميديكال تريننج وتبقي لنا طبيبه، ممكن برضو تعمليها وتكوني بروفيسور. academic medicine is a great area of profession. You can do it both, and I think you have the talent for teaching like the Prof. عبد الفتاح indicated. داير ارجع للنقطه اللي قالها اخونا دكتور عبد الله، اللي هي القصه بتاعت ال very 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 intriguing and very smart and I think brilliant analogy of الكتاب، الصوره والبورتريه في الكتاب، اللي هو الولد الألماني اللي بعاين من الشباك بتاعه بيشوف الكامب، وبعد ذاك الانتراكشن between the two worlds. الحاصل هسه في السودان exactly very 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 similar. يعني أنا يعني لما عبد الله قال الفكرة دي I was like wow this is يعني very 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 يعني بورتريه رهيب. الحصل إنه لما دارفور دي حصل الديزاستر اللي حصلت فيها والأتروسيتي اللي حصلت فيها exactly what is ناس describing في الخرطوم، والفاعلين هم the same people. however نحن لما الحاجة دي حصلت في دارفور أنا I remember on my campus كان في وقفة وكلها كانت imposed by الميديا الجاد، لأن جورج كلوني دخل في الموضوع. فمشيت في الوقفة I felt so little, I felt so يعني ashamed إنه it takes somebody from outside to bring the light لمشكلة إنه أنا أفتش في الجرايد بتاعتنا، أفتش في الميديا بتاعتنا there is no mention of it.
No one care.
Yeah. فهسه أسد في exactly الناس يعني الاغتصابات، الناس اللي بتدخل تاخد حق يعني الحالة بتاعت الهلع الإشكال الحاصل في الخرطوم ده حصل في دارفور، لكن إحنا ما عينا له من الشباك وشفنا إنه this is not us. يعني ما مشكلتنا لحد ما الراجل ده
عينا من الشباك وقفلنا ومشينا.
فأنا بفتكر إنه يعني يعني معليش الناس دايرين يبعدوا من to numb ourselves بإنه نحن نبعد من الحاجة الحاصلة ونحاول لنا كم to create some escape. لكن هو الفيل in the room الelephant in the room is مبارين يعني. فحتى هسه إنه عبد الله يجرنا أنا باك. it is so striking and I was just amazed يعني إنه التشابه ده. قبل فترة قريت لي برضه very 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 brilliant story بتاعت الفار اللي عايش له في مزرعة، والسيد المزرعة خدت له الشرك فمشي يشتكى للديك. الديك قال له أنا مالي مالك، الشرك ده حيقبضك أنت. فمشي للخروف، الخروف قال له أنا مالي مالك. مشي للبقرة. المهم the end of the story إنه المرة مرة المزارع وقع في ثعبان وقع في الشرك وعضى المرة الزوسيد المزرعة. ف it ended up قاموا جو ناس عشان أهل المرة جو عشان يشوفوا بنتهم العضية الدبيب. ضبحوا الديك عشوا بيه الناس. المرة حالتها اتطورت وبقت عيانة شديد، فجو ناس زيادة ضبحوا الخروف. بعد ذاك المرة ماتت والعزة كان كبير ضبحوا التور. فالفار في النهاية قال لهم ما قلت الشرك ما بيهمكم. فالذا سيم ستوري انه الناس يفتكروا الجنجويد والهناي ديل المشكلة بتاعت دارفور، مشكلة بتاعت هو في النهاية they became the problem of the whole Sudan, the problem of us نحن البر السودان. ف just يعني أنا عجبني جدا التعليق بتاع عبد الله إنه ربط الدور بتاعت الناس لما تعيش في واقع بعيد وما بيفتكروا إنه الحاجة بتدخلهم. فهو الزول المنفذ للإجرام النازي يتمسك في حتة حارة شديدة طفله. ف it is كلنا الناس تتمسكوا من يدهم اللي بتوجعهم، وهسه نحن we're suffering. فشكرا وجين يعني ما شاء الله، وربنا يحفظ ويغطي عليك يا بنتي ويديك كل مراد.
شكرا لك يا سكين. go ahead يا أمنية، دايرة تعلقي ولا؟
بس قلتي يعني شكرا للتعليق. بس I agree with you completely. Especially I know انتي قلتي sometimes we want to escape from what's happening or just separate ourselves from what's happening in the outside world. But this is one sentence I want to say is that we all have to stick together, because all of us as a human race, we all live on the same earth together, and whether we have to help each other. We can't just ignore what's happening to one another, because then we can't live, and atrocities like what we're reading in this book right now will happen. So we must all stick together. That's what I think.
Thank you very much.
ممكن ندخل بدون استئذان؟
عثمان تفضل.
3 دقائق. والله انا يعني انا مبسوط جدا لما عرفت انك انت حفيدة بنت النقر. حبوبتك دي يعني هي حبوبتك وخلاص يعني. وبعدين الحاجة دي ما غريبة عليك. لو رجعنا باك لبروفيسور عمر النقر وجوديس زوجته والعائلة وكده، داير اقول لك يعني جدودك ديل بيحاولوا انه يبعدوك. انا بتخيل كده بيحاولوا يبعدوك من دراسة الطب، لكن do what you like. بالمناسبة عندك عم لك هنا قاعد ساكت، هو شاعر، عنده ديوان شعر عظيم. خلاص عامل للمقدمة برضو واحد من جدودك الأطباء والشعراء، فهو بيفتكر إنه ما في أي تناقض ما بين الطب وما بين الإبداع، لأنه الطب مهنة والإبداع ما مهنة. الإبداع كرييشن، أنت عارف الحاجة دي. نرجع باك أنا حقيقة ما قريت الكتاب، أنا شاهدت الفيلم وبهمني جدا الفيلم، لأنه أنا بهتم بالدراما، جزء من حاجاتي اللي بهتم بها. وقعدي في بريطانيا هنا خلاني أعرف المينتاليتي بتاعت اليهود. شوفي، تتكلمي في أي حاجة ما تتكلمي في الهولوكوست ولا تتكلمي في الزيونيزم. ديل شفت حاجات إن قلت الله 10 ما بهمهم، كويس، استغفر الله. لكن تتكلمي في واحد زي ديل بيدخلوك 10 أراضي لتحت، ما بخلوك. they will characteristically will be assassinated. عرفت كيف؟ وشوفوا يا جماعة شوفوا حقارة الأوروبيين. انتوا بتتكلموا عن دارفور، اي والله ما حاجة سهلة. وبزيد عليها المذبحة بتاعت العلفون اللي هي الذكرى بتاعتها بتجي مع كل أضحية. لكن بالله عليكم الله الناس دي الفير يا أخي، أبناء عمومتهم هنا في بوزنيا ما عملوا لهم كونسنتريشن كامب، كلنا شفناه. أرجعي أنت صغيرة طبعا ما ولدوك لما قامت الحرب في بوزنيا. قتلوا المسلمين يا أمنية، قتلوا الرجال بس واغتصبوا البنات وخلوهم كده. شفت البنات حتى فيهم كميات انتحروا لأن المسلمات قالوا ما عارفين يعني هم حيعملوا شنو يعني بل في أرحامهم دي. سكتوا عليها، يعني جابوهم بنفس الشكل بتاع بتاع الكونسنتريشن كامب. داير اقول وسكتوا عليها لما الناس دي ماتوا، وفي ناس صفوهم داخل المعسكرات يعني بتاعت البوزنيا. داير اقول لك حاجه ثانيه هنا في بريطانيا. انا كنت يعني بمشي بحضر مع عيالي الاسمبلي بتاعهم في البرايمري سكول بالذات، ف يعني بيحتفلوا بآن فرانك بالشكل عاملينها قديسه. وكل سنه هي هسه المين كاركتر للهولوكوست. فالمكتبات كلها بتعرض الكتاب المذكرات بتاعتها، وبيجيبوا ما عارف الحركات بتاعتهم ديك اسمها شنو دي، الشمعات ومش عارف وام فرانك وبطله. واتذكر انه بتهس كبيره يعني. كان الموديل بتاعه افتكر في الجونيا كان عن آن فرانك وكنا بنتونس به سوا. لاحظت انه كمان ك بيسموه شنو يا اخي، عضو في مجلس الاباء. انت فاهمه كلامي الفارغ بالعربي ده؟
فاهمة.
انا بحب دائما اتكلم بالعربي. الجبال في واحد سأل عن الحاجات دي، وهل مضمنه في الكريكولم وكده. في بريطانيا موجوده، لكن بفهمهم هم بفهم اليهود وكده. they must have، يعني خاتنا في اسمه شنو ده، في الأكاديمية بتاعتهم. ورغم ان عندهم مدارسهم، طبعا انت عارفه الحاجه دي، اليهود في بريطانيا عندهم مدارسهم، ما في اي زول بيتدخل فيها، بيدرس شنو دي، ما قضيه الزول. داير اذكرك ثاني بحاجه ارجع اليها، حاجتين. واحده في واحد مسلم اسمه روجيا جارودي، هل سمعتي به؟ سمعتي به؟ امشي جوجلت. الزول ده اصلا كان ماركسي وملحد، فاسلم. عرفتي كيف؟ اسلم وهو ذاته هو ذاته يهودي، عرفتي؟ فقام كذب العمليه بتاعت الهولوكوست، قاموا عليه ودوه محكمه، لكن في النهايه افتكر يا سليمان، افتكر ربح القضيه، افتكر.
والله
مش كده؟
ما الكلام ده كان قديم يا عثمان، الكلام ده في السبعينات خليه ولا الثمانينات.
لا 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 لا، هسي انا قاعد في بريطانيا دي في التسعينات. في التسعينات، هي امتدت لفتره طويله، هم مات قريب. روجيا جارودي. فبهدلوه بهدله بس لانه اسلم، عرفت كيف؟ ووقف في طريقهم. اخيرا داير ادلك على كتاب اسمه ايام ديفيد. اكتبيه، ايام ديفيد باي ان ANNE ان هولم HOLM، وهي دي دنش المردي. ده الروايه دي من امتع، لو قريتيها حتستمتع بها اكثر من الروايه الحلوه اللي انت استعرضتيها لنا دي. وانا يعني دلتني عليها السوبرفايزر بتاعتي هنا في الجامعه في كاردف، فخديتها حتى كانت جزء من الريفرنسز بتاعتي. شكرا لكم، وخلي امك دي بالله عليك الله تبخرك من جدودك ديل.
شكرا
لك. ندي ابو بكر. we are now approaching 2 hours. حندي ابو بكر فرصه ونخليك تختمي لنا، تجاوبي لو عنده اسئله، وتجاوبي عاوز تكومنت على عمي عثمان، او تجاوبي لو في سؤال، وبعدين تختمي لنا. ابو بكر.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمه الله.
الحقيقة ما عندي أي سؤال، لكن بس عايز أقدم شكر لنادي الكتاب 81. استضافتكم لأمنية كانت يعني، أو يعني إعطاء الفرصة تعمل البرزنتيشن للكتاب، كان يعني عمل جميل جدا جدا، وأبدعت أيما إبداع، الحمد والشكر لله. وعندي تعليق بسيط على إنه الناس تخلي بالها من الجيل ده، لأنه جيل very neutral، ما تأثر باللي احنا انغمسنا وتأثرنا فيه بأعمارنا الكبيرة. الناس دول بيشوفوا الحاجات على حقيقتها، ما بيشوفوها من واقع أي influence ولا تأثير. فلاحظت القصة دي أنا في كثير من الشباب في العمر ده، لما تناقشهم في قضايا مختلفة، زي ما الناس اتكلمت قبل شوية عن النظرية العرب against الهولوكوست، ورأيهم فوقه وإنه الناس دي exaggerated الحاجات وزادوا فيها وكده، واهتموا بالجانب ده وتركوا جوانب كثيرة مشابهة لها من مجازر ومن غيره. هنا جاوبت أمنية إجابة ما حنساها، إنه بينظروا للأمر من ناحية بتاعت facts، إنه حصل جينوسايد وحصلت حقائق موجودة على الأرض، وبيناقشوها كشيء حدث والأفكار حولها. فشكرا جزيلا مرة ثانية، وإن شاء الله مستقبل باهر لبنتنا أمنية. السلام عليكم.
شكرا جزيلا. شكرا يا أبو بكر، شكرا جزيلا. أنا أفتكر إنه the biggest credit بالنسبة لك أنت يا أمنية الليلة على هذا الأمسية الجميلة جدا اللي أديتينا لها، وشكرا على زمنك وشكرا على your understanding. لو تذكري أنا قبل لما اتصلت عليك وقلت لك أنتوا زي ما تأكيد على كلام أبو بكر إنه أنتوا جيل مختلف خالص عننا نحن، و in your thinking, understanding, your gathering of information، الثورة بتاعت informatics ولا الانفورميشن اللي انتوا عايشين فيها is quite different. عشان كده احنا we believe انكم انتوا thinking and understanding is different from ours. ف ما شاء الله عليكي. واذا كان نحن دخلنا في نوع من البوليتكس الليله I don't think that well it's up to you anyway. فالفيرست كريدت ليكي انت، والفيرست كريدت انا افتكر انه لجون بوين. أنا زي ما قلت من بدري إنه هو he's a bit controversial and sometimes he's confrontational، لكن قدر يقنعنا إحنا كلنا إنه this book whether with or against قدر يقنعنا إنه نحن to generate all this discussion، وقدر يقنعني أنا نجيب البيبر بوك. أنا عادة ما بجيب البيبر بوك إلا أكون متشوق إنه أعرف what's going on، لأنه ريحة الكتاب دي ذاتها أنا بالنسبة لي بتعني حاجة. فشكرا لك، شكرا لك كثير جدا، ونديك فرصة إنك تختمي لنا.
أيوة شكرا، بس عايز أقول شكرا لدكتور سليمان للدعوة، شكرا لنادي الكتاب 81، وشكرا لكل الأسئلة والتعليقات الحلوة. بس آخر حاجة أقول نحن تكلمنا عن السودان، بس نحن obviously السودان الحالات الخاصة يعني بتزعل وحاجات يعني horrible. وبس عشان لو عندنا وقت عاوزة أوريكم أغنية لقيتها بابا وراني ليها، وشوف يعني I thought it was very important. It's just to show that we're not forgetting about our country, and soon inshallah everything will be okay and everything will go back to normal. So okay, now أوري الأغنية.
يلا تفضلي go ahead.
Okay.
بكرة الهم يفوتنا ونرجع لبيوتنا، بحري ومظلمات. بكرة يقولوا عودوا وعيدنا تفوح ويرودوا، والخرطوم أمان. بكرة تفوح ويرودوا وقلوبنا مشوقة في شارع النيل نتلاقى ونمشي الامتداد، نرجع بحر تاني وتعود الأماني، نسهر في المزاد. بكرة حبيبي ارجع للبيوت، بكرة يعود عيدنا تفوح ويروح، تعود العباسية لما الشباب، بحرينا تتهني وصوت الحوت يغني يقول بعد الغياب. بكرة حبيبي ارجع للبيوت، بكرة يعود عيدنا تفوح ويروح، تعود نعمة الشعبية مؤسسة 100 شنبات الجبال، نمشي زورة جبرة من أنا وتبرة يحموها الرجال. بكرة الهم يفوتنا نرجع لبيوتنا، بحري ومظلمات. بكرة يقولوا عود عيدنا تفوح ويرود، والخرطوم ما دكاترة يكفى حنات يوم الوقفة والله أصحاب معاه يفوتنا نرجع لبيوتنا بحر وظلمات بكرة يعود عود عيد مفتوح ويرود والخرطوم أمان ناس مدر يتلاقوا وجونا.
اوكي باقي الأغنية زي دقيقتين.
شكرا لك على اختيار هذا الجميل، وانت دائما اختياراتك جميله، وشكرا لك على هذا الحضور الجميل، وشكرا لكم جميعا على المشاركات، وشكرا لكم على الحضور الجميل ايضا. و don't forget يا أمنية، انت your mom or you الزغرودة.
ما بنسى.
نصر الدين شايفك دار تقول حاجه؟ نصر الدين سليمان ظهرت كده واختفت، لكن شكرا جزيلا لك.
انا اشكركم على الياسمان على الاطراء يعني، وربنا ان شاء الله يعني يوفق الجميع.
شكرا جزيلا.
شكرا لك، تستاهل والله، بنتنا تستاهل. شكرا لكم.
الله يسلمك يا سليمان، شكرا لجماعه الحضور.